Hello and welcome back to my channel, Civil War Reports. I am your War of the Rebellion reporter, Brian Thomas Kopak, and I'm happy to say I'm back on the Gettysburg battlefield. It's Easter Sunday. Happy Easter to all of you out there. And I just want to follow up on an episode I did a few weeks back, episode 40, where I looked at the 6 overall Union commanders for July 1st, 1863 here at the Battle of Gettysburg. And I got to say, there were really 2 generals that stood out that are deserving of their own episode for that day. One of them being General Howard. I promise that will be coming down the road. And also for, as promised, General Slocum. I'm currently standing on Stevens Knoll here at the Gettysburg battlefield. This hill is, you can say about halfway between East Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill. It's a little closer to to Culp's Hill than it is East Cemetery Hill, but it's kind of in the middle, and that's where General Slocum's equestrian statue stands, and it is named after the 5th Maine, because it was that battery, Stevens Battery, that was posted here on the knoll. And there was a comment made when I did the episode 40 on the 6 overall commanders in regard to General Slocum. And I don't want to give away too much of the episode here in the beginning, but the question was, it surprises me to see Slocum in the list of overall commanders, even though he outranked Hancock. Yes, Slocum was a wing commander, but I thought he deferred judge on the field to Hancock and Howard because they were more familiar than he was. As for Meade arriving to be commander on the 1st, no, he wasn't. The question in that episode was, General Meade arrived here after midnight, so was he a 7th overall commander? I lean towards no. This comment at the end here, this gentleman also leaned towards no. Well, I don't want to give away too much of the episode because we're going to look at the actions of Slocum on July 1st, but in regard to him coming to the field and being overall commander, there is something written about by me. There was correspondence that day that, and this one sort of gets overlooked by a lot of historians, but let me just read this. This was sent by, it was sent to Hancock and Doubleday by General Meade on the 1st at 6 p.m. And it says, quote, "If General Slocum is on the field, and I hope he is, of course he takes command. Say to him I thought it prudent to leave a division of the 3rd Corps at Emmitsburg to hold in check any force attempting to come through there. It can be ordered up tonight if necessary. Sedgwick is moving up here and will be pushed forward in the night if required. It seems to me we have so concentrated that a battle at Gettysburg is now forced on us, and that if we get up all our people and attack with our whole force tomorrow, we ought to defeat the force the enemy has. Very respectively, George G. Meade, Major General Commanding." So again, let me just restate that first sentence. If General Slocum is on the field, and I hope he is, of course he takes command. So that was written at 6 o'clock on the night of the 1st. It's a correspondence that gets overlooked a lot, but it clearly states that Meade expected Slocum to be here by 6 o'clock that night, and for him to have command of the field when he arrives. General Slocum's after-action report for the Battle of Gettysburg is very sparse on details when it comes to July 1st. Perhaps he realized that he didn't perform at his best and did not get to the field as needed to take command. We're going to take a look today at some of the reasons why that was the case. So Let's leave the battlefield. Let's head about 5 miles south down the Baltimore Pike, modern day Route 97, and go to a little town called Two Taverns. After a very leisurely morning march, Slocum's 12th Corps arrived here at the small village of Two Taverns, only about 5 miles south of Gettysburg. And it was here that General Slocum began to learn about what was going on just 5 miles up the road. And at first, when he got notification that there was a battle going on, he claimed that he could hear nothing here at Two Taverns. Now, there's two legitimate possibilities for that. One is he could have arrived here during the noon lull. During the first day of the Battle of Gettysburg, after Archer's brigade was beaten back and Davis's brigade was forced to withdraw due to the fact that they had no supports on their right because of Archer being forced to withdraw, a bit of a quiet came over the battlefield. Became known as the noontime lull. For about an hour and a half, there really wasn't much in the way of any real fighting going on at the Battle of Gettysburg. And so it's very possible that he could have arrived here at Two Taverns during that time. It's also very likely, and this is probably the more accurate reason, is that he could have been experiencing here at Two Taverns an acoustic shadow which plagued a few battlefields during the American Civil War. We're kind of in a bit of a valley, and it's very possible that he just could not legitimately really hear what was going on. He admitted he heard what sounded like a few cavalry carbines being fired, but no real battle going on. So what does he do? He sends one of his aides to ride off towards Gettysburg, and the aide admitted that when he got to the top of the hill, he could clearly hear the sound of a battle raging. So with that said, Slocum does put his corps in motion, but it didn't seem like he moved with any real great alacrity. His men were allowed to have lunch, and then finally gets them on the road. And again, we're only 5 miles away, but he will not actually arrive on the battlefield to take command much later. So let's head on into Gettysburg, back to the battlefield, and we'll track Slocum's movements. Before we get on the road, folks, I just want to point out that this beautiful home located here on the Baltimore Pike, I just spoke with the owner, and she informed me that General Slocum did in fact have lunch here in this house before heading to Gettysburg on July 1st. If you are traveling to Gettysburg from Two Taverns, or if you're on Route 15 and simply get off at the Baltimore Street exit to head to the battlefield, you will come across this road sign. Not only was the Baltimore Pike used by the 12th Corps on the 1st, but it was also used by the 6th Corps on July 2nd. As I mentioned in a previous episode, the Union Army really only controlled 2 of the main roads heading into Gettysburg by the morning of July 2nd. The Baltimore Pike, which was the main artery for the Union Army, and the Taneytown Road. All of the other roads leading into Gettysburg, with the exception of the Emmitsburg Road, which was basically a no man's land, were controlled by the Confederates. Shortly after you pass that road sign, you will come to this area on the Baltimore Pike. I'm in front of now the marker announcing where General Slocum established his headquarters during the Battle of Gettysburg. And according to the placard, 260 yards to the west on Powers Hill. And it was here that when he arrived, General Slocum appears to have dilly-dallied before he continued on his ride to the Gettysburg battlefield. Powers Hill, unfortunately, is probably one of the least visited parts of the Gettysburg battlefield. Definitely was in the 20th century, but shortly after the start of the new millennial, the visitor center was moved, and Powers Hill is now very close to the new visitor center. If you want to visit it, there are some monuments up there, some cannon. Shortly before you get to the marker for Slocum's headquarters, and again, if you're coming from Two Taverns or coming up from Route 15, there's a left-hand turn, Granite Schoolhouse Lane, and another reason why this area is not visited very much, there is a small parking lot right after you turn on Granite Schoolhouse Lane on the left-hand side, so it's a bit of a walk. Unfortunately, behind Powers Hill, where the road, Granite Schoolhouse Lane, winds around, there's no parking there except for on the street. I'm not sure if that's allowed. So if you do want to visit it, it's going to be a bit of a walk from the parking lot up to the hill. So anyway, why did Slocum delay in getting to the battlefield? Again, Meade sends out that dispatch at 6 o'clock thinking Slocum is already there because he knew where Slocum was at lunchtime. It's not that far from Gettysburg. Well, a couple of things happened. One, as he's approaching Gettysburg, again, the Baltimore Pike is a major road, he is seeing both wounded being taken away from the battlefield. He mentions he sees some 11th Corps stragglers, and this is important. I guess there were some men from the 11th Corps who went past the rallying point on Cemetery Hill and continued down the Baltimore Pike. And Slocum had what I would call the ghost of Chancellorsville going through his head. What happened to Chancellorsville? Well, we know that Stonewall Jackson routed the 11th Corps pretty badly on May 2nd and sent them running back to the safety of the rest of the Army of the Potomac. And their Corps commander, Oliver Otis Howard, and the Corps itself took a lot of blame and got a lot of bad reputation for what happened to Chancellorsville. And Slocum is now being ordered to go to Gettysburg and assume overall command. But let's take a look at the track record for the Army of the Potomac in recent months leading up to Gettysburg. We'll start with 2nd Manassas, or 2nd Bull Run for the Northerners, where the Union Army under General John Pope got beat real badly. Some claim that was Robert E. Lee's best victory ever. Okay, the following month, well, the Union Army, we could say, held their own at Antietam. Then in December of '62, well, Union Army badly defeated at Fredericksburg. May of '63, badly defeated at Chancellorsville, and now Slocum again is being asked to go to Gettysburg and take command. Not really a proposition he wanted. He's seeing the 11th Corps stragglers and the ambulances with wounded coming down the Baltimore Pike. He gets here, he establishes his headquarters, and then he sort of waits. We're not too far right now from the Gettysburg battlefield, but by about 4 o'clock the fighting has petered out, but he still really doesn't want to get there. There's also another factor that doesn't get examined much when looking at Slocum on July 1st. Again, he doesn't play any major role because he does arrive on the battlefield after the fighting had died out for the day, but you got to keep in mind that the Confederacy was scattered all around the south central Pennsylvania countryside. And these are all facts that Slocum would have been aware of. That were the Confederates in Chambersburg? Well, yeah, they were on June 30th and July 1st. Were they getting ready to invade Harrisburg? Well, Harrisburg was on General Lee's list of things to do. Were they over in New York? Well, yeah. Ewell was over in New York. Sorry, Early, who was part of Ewell's corps, was over in New York. So the Confederates were spread out. And Slocum may have feared that there might have been another Stonewall Jackson, Chancellorsville move in the making, with Confederates coming up on his flank, in his rear. He just didn't know. Bottom line is, Slocum really did not want to take command of this situation. But when he did arrive in this area, he did deploy his troops. And we'll take a look at what he did with his divisions when he arrived here at Gettysburg. When you think of the 12th Corps in terms of where they fought, you probably automatically think of Cope's Hill. And you really don't think of Little Round Top at all. But on the night, or should I say the evening of July 1st into the night of July 1st, General Geary's 2nd Division of the 12th Corps occupied the northern slope of Little Round Top, and they remained there well into nightfall before they were ordered over to the Culp's Hill area. So why did General Slocum send one of his divisions over here to what would be the Union left, to the slope of Little Round Top, an area that would become very famous the next day, but on July 1st was an area that very few people ever heard of or knew about? Well, there's really, in my opinion, two reasons. One, again, they didn't know where the Confederates were all at. Were they completely concentrated over in the Seminary Ridge area? Were they going to sweep around? And if so, well, we needed some Union troops here. Also, in my opinion, I think this was going to be necessary should General Slocum order a retreat, because right behind Little Round Top is the Taneytown Road. And as I mentioned earlier, there were only two roads that the Union Army controlled leading into or out of Gettysburg on the night of July 1st. The Baltimore Pike and the Taneytown Road. So Geary's men could have been sent here with the intention of being fresh troops to cover a retreat. Slocum's other division, under the command of Alpheus Williams, was originally placed east of Rock Creek until it was determined that they were in a very exposed position and they would be recalled to the Culp's Hill area. So despite being only 5 miles away at lunchtime, Slocum does not really arrive on the battlefield to assume overall command until about 7 o'clock at night. That must have been very upsetting to General Meade, nicknamed Old Snapping Turtle, who expected Slocum to have been here much earlier. Again, at lunchtime, he was only 5 miles away. They say that you never really know a topic until you have to teach it. And when I was preparing the script for episode 40, the 6 Union commanders on July 1st, I really didn't know much about Slocum's thoughts and mindset. And as a result of preparing for that episode, well, that became the catalyst for this episode. Definitely Slocum did not want another Chancellorsville, or at least not be in command of another Chancellorsville. And as he was approaching Gettysburg, he had every reason to believe that there was another Chancellorsville in the making here. With that said, I truly believe, and this is nothing more than my opinion, you can disagree with me, and that's great if you do, but I believe if Robert E. Lee had launched an attack the evening into the early night of July 1st with Slocum in charge, he would have retreated. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think if a real strong concentrated attack was made on Cemetery Hill or the Culp's Hill area, that he would have put the Army of the Potomac in motion down both the Baltimore Pike and the Townytown Road, and headed probably back into Maryland and began using the Pipe Creek Circular that General Meade had sent out during the march into Pennsylvania. But again, that's just my opinion. If you think otherwise, please leave a comment below. I want to thank the lady I met who let me film her home. She said General Slocum had lunch there in her home on July 1st. That's a great piece of history to own. And again, I want to say Happy Easter to all of you out there. To me, this is a great way to celebrate Easter, not only remembering the religious aspect of the day, but to spend some time here at the Gettysburg battlefield, which to me, as I mentioned before, is in many ways my home away from home. For Civil War Reports, I am your War of the Rebellion reporter, Brian Thomas Kopak. Until next time, thank you for watching. And if you like what you saw today, please hit the subscribe button. Give a thumbs up. Also, notify your friends. Let them know about this channel and ask them to subscribe as well. If you like, you may leave a question or a comment below, and perhaps I will answer your question in a future episode of Civil War Reports. Until next time, please keep the history alive.